Hey guys, Monke AU here with another video, and today I'm going to be going through my matchmaking and predicting of UFC Perth. Now, there's going to be a fight night coming to Perth this year. Apparently it's going to be halfway through the year, so maybe June, maybe August, who knows. But these are just like some little fights that could be made that I think would be pretty good for the main card. Now, Perth is going to be the opportunity to have all the Australian fighters fight, obviously, or the smaller ones, the guys who want to rise up through the ranks. I haven't included a couple because, frankly, I'm not really good at matchmaking when it comes to the unranked lower weight classes. Like, for example, with Colby Thickness, like the guy who fought Toporia's brother, I don't know who to matchmake him against, because some of these low ranked bantamweights, I really don't know enough about them, and apparently there's like dozens of them, so who knows whether they'd be good matchups. And similarly, there are some other guys like Quinlan Salkeld in lightweight division, which these guys are on the debuts, or they've either got one fight into their careers, and I really don't know who would be a good stepping stone, because you don't want to matchmake them against someone really high up, but you don't want to give them you don't know who's an appropriate step up, But these are just some main card predictions that I think would add value to the card. Now, I'm just going to go straight into the main event. Sean Strickland versus Robert Whittaker. Now, I think this fight would actually be pretty good for Whittaker, and I say this because Strickland, he seems to be going through a bit of a rough patch right now, because there's questions as to whether he's going to be sticking with his team after 312. And frankly, I think Whittaker just took a bad loss against Kazmat, and people really do forget, because before that he had a great win against Paulo Costa. He knocked out Ikram Aliskerov, and against Chimaev he just had a really unfortunate incident. The jaw was weak. Kazmat capitalized on that and just broke it, And also, I've said this before in my Dricker's first Kazmat prediction video. Who knows what would have happened if Whittaker rode out the round? Because we have to remember that wasn't a clean rear naked choke where he went to sleep. It was like a severe break where he just couldn't continue. It's a neck crank. It wasn't a rear naked choke. It was a neck crank. So I'm just saying, who knows how that fight would have gone? Maybe Whittaker would have dragged him into deeper waters. Now, that being said, I don't think Whittaker is going to knock out Strickland, obviously. And I think there's actually a reasonable chance that Strickland could knock out Whittaker, right? But I think that would only happen if he's caught with a really bad counter, right? Because the way this happens is Drickers hits him with a stiff jab, which again was right on that jaw, so who knows about that? Or he gets hit with a vicious counter like Adesanya did. Strickland has the potential to do that, obviously, but I think a knockout of Whittaker would happen if Strickland pressed him against the cage. He had nowhere to go, and he just ate a mean, stiff jab of Strickland's, which we have to remember, Strickland's jab is really good. It destroyed Dricus in the first fight. It was just bang, bang, bang. What's he going to do? It's like he couldn't avoid it. Now if Whittaker gets hit by that a couple times, he might get knocked out. But I think that if Whittaker can put Strickland on the back foot, which is clearly the key to beating Strickland, all you got to do is just keep him on the back foot, and he may not do enough to win the round necessarily, except for round 5 where he'll come out swinging. If he can rack up 3 rounds, he's won the fight. Assuming he doesn't get knocked out, that's an easy win for him. And I think that his style of the karate stance, moving back and forth, hit him with one, come back, hit him again, slowly inching forward, and eventually he may even hit him with that signature jab, followed by the kick you never saw coming. And I don't know if he'd really hit them with that. I don't know if Strickland has a tendency to dip his head or anything like Yair Ramiro style, but it's possible. That being said, I think this is a really good matchup. I don't want either of these guys to be fed to the wolves necessarily, and Whittaker did a massive favor to the UFC, Like, he took the first Kazmat fight, that was cancelled. He then took it again. Then he took the Aliskerov fight, which he did not have to, and he did it. And then he took the Kazmat fight, which again he may not necessarily have had to do. So he owes the UFC, and because of that, I don't think they're going to feed him to the wolves. I don't want to see a Whittaker versus Caio Baralho necessarily. I just think that's kind of mean. And Strickland's coming off a pretty bad loss, so I think this is a matchup which makes sense. Well, Whittaker's been calling for this fight to happen at 317 or International Fight Week. That's cool, but if this was a 5-rounder, Strickland's built for 5-rounders, this would be a great headliner for Perth since there's a fight night. But still, this is a great fight. I really hope this happens, because I've got a feeling that Whittaker could pull it off, and that would be my prediction. Now, this is the alternative co-main event, or if the Whittaker fight doesn't happen, this could be the main event. Realistically, I don't think we would get this fight as the main event, because I mean, I want it to be the main event, right? Because then he can be justified as 5 rounds. I don't know if they could convince Gaethje to leave the country though, or leave America. I mean, he hasn't left in a while, but he did it for London. I don't know if Perth is that high profile, and I think this is a pretty big matchup. Maybe not necessarily worthy of being on a fight night, but I want it to be in Perth. Because when I watched Dan Hooker versus Dan Hooker versus Gamrot in Perth, that was nuts. The place went crazy. That being said, I still think Hooker would beat Justin Gaethje, and I think after watching the second Fiziev fight with Gaethje, he is undoubtedly the king of dirty boxing in the clinch. I mean, that sequence where he ducks the jab, slips the uppercut, and hits Fiziev with his own uppercut is filthy. And here's the problem though, Fiziev was game, right? I don't necessarily think that Hooker would be that willing to go into the pocket, but obviously if he does, he's going to take it, pause. But I think Hooker's more of a keep you at range, in and out, in and out, in and out style, which does leave him susceptible to being caught like he was against Gamrot, and then he could be pressed back. Also, another thing we have to consider is, I don't know if we really saw it that much, but Gaethje's leg kicks against a taller guy like Hooker, who relies on that in and out style, that could be pretty dangerous. I think both of these guys, this obviously, what's there to say? This is a BMF fight, for heaven's sake. If Max didn't have the belt, this would be the BMF fight. In the past, I've been saying that maybe Hooker could hit Gaethje with a submission, but that all depends on his ability to either knock him down and get that, or getting a takedown on him. Dan Hooker's not the kind of guy to shoot a takedown on Gaethje, let's be honest. So that would be a crazy sequence if that did happen. It's possible, but I kind of doubt. That being said, I still think Hooker could edge out a decision if he went in and out, in and out. But yeah, I still think Gaethje has a great chance of knocking him out. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if Gamrot can drop you, that's not a good look necessarily. This is a really good fight. I hope they make it regardless of whether or not it's in Perth. And another good fight is Jake Matthews versus Neil Magny. Jake Matthews actually called out Magny, and everyone was saying, kind of unexpected, but a reasonable fight. Everyone forgets that the Matthews fight at 312 was actually a bit of a scrap. Like, I remember sitting there with my friend, and we were just talking, but every time we'd look up at the screen, these guys would be trading in the pocket, point blank, just swinging. I mean, the problem is neither of them carried huge power necessarily, so it was kind of just like watching two guys smack each other over and over and over. No one was dropping, nothing like that. That being said, Neil Magny, I don't know, he's a little chinny, I guess. I mean, I don't think Matthews carries that Carlos Prates power. No one does, obviously, but I think this is a good fight. These guys, whoever is the winner of this, will be on the cusp of being on the top 15. And I think this is a fight night worthy event, especially in Australia. So yeah, I don't think either of these guys are getting knocked out. I don't think anyone's getting subbed. That being said, I think Matthews would outpoint him to a decision. Another good fight would be Tom Nolan versus Matt Frevola. And honestly, I think Matt Frevola, like I said, he's close to the top 15. I'm pretty sure he was ranked not that long ago. Frevola, especially in the last two fights, he is allergic to leg kicks. Like, obviously, the Benoit destroyed him with a leg kick. And then Farir Zayam, not quite the same, but, he dragged his head straight into the knee. Nolan, in his last fight against the Slava Claus guy, I forgot his name, he was kicking him so many times. Like, that was pretty crazy. And that being said, I think it's just a matter of time until he catches Frevola on the chin and puts him away. But this would be a really good fight. I think Tom deserves a fight at this point close to the top. He is getting there. He's taking fights. He's putting on good shows. And I think he is a real Australian talent at the lightweight division. And I think if he can get a highlight knockout on Frevola, he could probably get a ranked opponent next, or get close to it, But that being said, this is a good fight. Yeah, Nolan by KO. Another good fight would be Navajo Sterling versus Anton Turkalj. Anton really is basically just known as the guy you feed to the prospects at this point. I'm pretty sure he's 4-0. So this is a make or break fight for him. It's on the website. It said he was still a part of the UFC, but who knows? Maybe he has been cut. This will be a good step up in competition for Sterling. In his last fight, he wasn't able to knock out the other guy, which is what most people were thinking. So, he lost a little bit of hype, but still, he is a KO artist. And Turkalj, he seems to be knocked out semi-frequently. So I think, again, Sterling could probably get a good knockout here and win this fight. Next fight, Jack Jenkins versus Nate the Train Landwehr. This would be another crazy fight. I know I already said that, Or I think I mentioned that the Dan Hooker Gaethje fight, if this was on the card as a guaranteed fight of the night, this would also be a guaranteed fight of the night. And I know Nate in his last fights against Doo Ho Choi didn't necessarily bring that energy, and everyone was really hyped for it, and then it was a little bit disappointing if my memory serves me right. This would still be a badass fight, don't get me wrong, because both of these guys are the kind of sluggish featherweights that just really bring it. You know, Nate needs no introduction, but also Jack Jenkins, he's ruthless. I mean, his leg kicks are vicious. Neither of these guys are the kind to shoot takedowns on each other necessarily. I mean, they're not. I think they'd have a mutual understanding that this isn't meant to be like a strategic fight. This is meant to be this is how you build the highlight reel. This is how you get those numbers going. This is how you get a following. And this makes sense. Both of these guys aren't necessarily close to the top 15, but they're certainly able to stand with some of the guys there. And yeah, I think that this would be a great violent fight to add to the card. But yeah, that just about does it for my UFC or matchmaking and predicting UFC Perth. Obviously, that's not an exhaustive list of the kind of fights I put on. I'd want to maximize the amount of like Australian and New Zealand representation as much as I can. Like put them all up there. Like I said earlier, put up Quinlan, put up Colby, put them all up there. You know, get some good fights going for these guys. But yeah, what do you guys think about those fights? What are some other fights you would personally add? And yeah, check out my other videos. Leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.